My name is Beth McDonald Stone, and I'm an avid knitter and knitwear designer coming to you from Bermuda. I hope you're well. It's been exciting weather-wise on the eastern seaboard. If you're in the New York, US area or up in the Maritimes in Canada, I know you've been getting a lot of snow and a lot of wind, and I hope that you're cozy at home and busy with all sorts of fun knitting and other projects. Bermuda, we get sort of like the edge of that sort of stuff. So we had a really cold night last night, but it's a beautiful day in Bermuda and I'm grateful for it. But I do love looking at all the photos of, especially New York City. It's just a magical old city and having all that heavy snow all over it and the trees and everything, it just looks fantastic. But I'm happy to see it from a distance. But I hope everyone's well. Hope you're knitting. Hope you're busy with whatever that keeps you excited and engaged. So today I wanted to talk about the primary discussion point is going to be this amazing blanket. This is the Reykjavik Blanket, and it came very close to being frogged, and I ripped back a lot, and I'd like to just talk about that later on with you guys and whether it was worth it or not. It was worth it. Yeah, and just some thoughts on that, also tips. It's not a tricky knit, so let's talk about that in a minute. But before we do, I'll just talk about what I'm wearing, which is the Bermudiana, and I thought that despite all the snow and cold and wind and everything on the eastern seaboard of Canada, United States, I think that spring is kind of in the air. I think it's the last blast, hopefully. Anyways, so I was feeling like wearing something spring-like. The Bermudiana flower is very spring for us here on the island, and this is a sweater with the motif to resemble that flower, our national flower here. It's a really fun knit. It's a really easy knit, and it's a great knit that it's basically in fingering weight yarn. Any fingering weight will do, which is great for transitional, so it's not a very heavy sweater. And perfect for these kind of cool, fresh days. So yeah, so this is the Bermudiana. If I remember correctly, yes, I do. It's knitted bottom up. I did a contrasting hem. Oh, there's my undershirt. A contrasting hem, and then color work up, straight, no shaping. It's designed to be drop sleeve, drop shoulder construction. So you want it to basically be oversized and wider than your body so that the sleeve works. And I know I've talked about this before, but basically my suggestion is to take the sort of midpoint between your shoulder and your elbow and find out what that is width to width, and that's your best bet for a drop sleeve sweater. So that measurement here. And then the oversized nature is just great, and it hangs beautifully, especially since it's not a thick knit. So it's a pretty gentle gauge with a fingering weight yarn and some color work going up. You do knit flat or steek it, whatever you prefer, just to get around the sleeve opening, and then work decreases up the shoulder to give it the shape to contour to your shoulder so nicely. Pick up around the neck. I picked up and used another contrasting color, which I'm thrilled about. I think it's great. I did mine a little bit longer. I could easily tuck it in and stitch it down. It's really whatever works for you, whatever you prefer. I do love a turtleneck, and this sweater does work really well for me when it's really cold, and I'm happy to wear it up. And I also do turn it over on the outside or on the inside, whatever I want. So by not pinning it down, I'm still very flexible, and it's a sweater you can knit whatever, how you want it. And then a fairly straight sleeve, which is my preference these days. I used yarn that was gifted to me by my friend Priscilla, who bought this lovely yarn. This is G-uld New Zealand Lammeuld that she picked up at a festival in Denmark a few years ago. A Fanon festival? Does that sound right? Yeah. Anyway, so that was really special yarn. And I used whatever I have. I'm a big believer in I use what I have in stash. So I used some Rauma Finullgarn for the dark blue, which is 4006, and the natural color, which is 401. this color, the 4006, wasn't sort of contrasting enough, and it was sort of losing its impact. So I added La Bien Aimee Mohair just to punch that color out, but it's not required in the pattern. It's just, that was more of just sort of like pushing a color to get the strength required to balance the natural and to be seen on this sort of mid-tone behind it. So yeah, and you can really use any lace weight yarn, especially if it has a halo. It's really great to sort of push colors and give textures. It has a lot of functions, of course, in a sweater, but this one was just to push a color, just to make it a bit more bold. And I think it worked out really well. So I love this sweater. I think it's a great transitional piece, and it feels a bit summery-ish, like nod to summer, nod to spring. And the Bermudiana flower, I haven't seen any out yet. I think it's still a month off, but here's hoping. Not that I'm rushing the warmer temperatures. To be honest, this for me in Bermuda right now is perfect. We're in the sort of low 60s, high 50s through the night. You can't get better in my mind. So anyways, so that's that. So let's talk about the finished objects and this West Knits blanket. So this is the Houses of Reykjavik blanket. I've been to Reykjavik years ago with my son Oliver. We had a great time. When Stephen published this blanket, I think in the fall of this year, it just knocked me off my feet. I thought it was so beautiful, and I love this section here, this sort of colorful ring that you start with, which to me are the actual colors of the Houses of Reykjavik. I wanted to make this a stash buster, and so I pulled out all of my little bits and bobs and some sort of random one skeins left over from DK weight sweaters and whatnot, and actually even worsted weight sweaters. Like I really found, and heavy sport, like I just used anything in that range. Put them in containers, initially separated the containers from like the neutrals to the blacks and dark grays and to colors. And then I further worked the colors, because this is your cast on basically, is this ring of houses, I should say. And while I wanted it to be colorful, I wanted the colors to be balanced overall. And I feel like the best way to balance colors is to separate them in their depth of color. So I've got really dark colors, I've got really medium colors, and I've got really pale colors. So I separated those three into the three options and just made sure I rotated through each. So you can see, I think this is classified as a pale color, this chartreuse. This olive green in the middle one here was in my dark pile, and this teal was in my medium. And so of course, light, dark, medium, light, dark, medium, and so on and on. And therefore you could be really random with the colors, but you know it will give a really good overall composition together, which is really important to me. I thought that was really, I don't know where I thought of that. It's not an original thought. I'm absolutely positive. Maybe it's something that Stephen West has talked about in the past, or I've learned on other things. I am a total lover of color theory, etc. And so I'm just a big sponge there. So whatever, but I was really grateful that I had that thought when I was initially starting to work on this project, because I do think that really helped balance everything out. Then going from there color-wise, you then move from this outer ring of the houses shapes, then you work on the inside. And I wanted this to be cohesive and to kind of coordinate with the TV room that we have, which has got like a brown and white tiger print, zebra print, something like that, carpet. There was a lot of beiges and creams in that room, fireplace, etc. So I also worked with what quantities that I had, as in Stephen is great because he gives for requirements for a section, and I use those requirements to sort of eliminate what kind of color family. And that's where I came up with this natural background, pinks, and then the yellows, and then a red center. So it's sort of like, this is like the warm tone section, and that worked out really well. In this section, these rings here, these sort of three gold rings, were meant to be little baubles. I just wasn't willing to do all that fussing about. So I just literally did this as a purl stitch. So knit one to get the color introduced so that it's a solid color, then knit, I think, 1 or 2 rounds in purl to get it raised, and then back to the main color, which is the natural. So it gives a great effect. It gives a raised ring. a little bit of texture, but it wasn't the work of the baubles, which they look great. They didn't look dramatically different from this, that I didn't feel it was really worth all the effort for little baubles. I'm not against baubles. It's just sometimes I just want to knit and not, turn back and front and back and all that good stuff. So that was really easy. So from the houses to the middle, great, really fun. Actually kind of happened pretty fast. Then after the houses, that's where I kind of made my big mistake. You go around on the outside and you pick up stitches, super easy, no big deal. That was fine, but I didn't read the instructions clearly enough, and my starting point was half a repeat off. So here where you have, let's see if I can just get this on my arm. Yeah, that's probably the best. Here where you have this point in the houses obviously needs to be in line with this point of the brioche, but I had it off. So they were sort of pushing at each other. So basically this section was up here, this section was down here. It was half a repeat off. It just did not work. And if I have any, I know I have photos. I'll put one in here so you can see like the fabric just was going like this all the way around. And yes, totally fine with a design feature, but I knew it would just drive me nuts. And I put so much work into it, and I was really loving this project. It was really fun. It was really beautiful. And I really wanted it to be perfect. So if you remember, I think it was the last episode or the episode before, I showed videos of how I cut this out and tried to put the stitches back on. And I spent a day on it. It was fine. It was a real learning lesson. But I just was not able to line it up. And it was basically because of the brioche decreases and increases that happen. So you've got increases here and decreases here. And it was just a jumble of stitches I couldn't line up. So I had to frog it back. And I frogged it back. The other thing to know is once you get past this houses of Reykjavik, once you get into this sort of the outer ring, I call it, there's a lot of stitches on your needles. I think basically it starts at sort of around 800 or 900 and it goes well over 1,000. Okay, no, that's no problem. And I have no issue with that. The problem is though that number of stitches on one big circular is really hard to move around. It just becomes a real backlog, and it was exhausting knitting each round. There was a lot of pushing and pulling, and my hands were super fatigued. So the great thing is I put stuff out on Instagram with your suggestions on how to figure this out and try to graft it back and all that. And everyone was super helpful, and I thank you so much. And I also on the episode talked about how my hands were so fatigued. And Gwen from A Woolly Closet in Denmark saw it, an amazing knitting small world, and commented and said, use 2 long cables and just bisect all the stitches. And that was a game changer when I went to reknit everything, and that was amazing. So thank you, Gwen. That made the reknit so much more comfortable, I can't say, and pleasurable, because you just, you're knitting and you've got the movement and you've got the rhythm going, where before it was like, it just wasn't working. So thank you, Gwen. Thank you for this knitting community. It's just made it so helpful. And from then on, I worked it out. Because of the first time around, I'd already worked out my colors. I did want this to offset the warm tones in here, so I wanted this to be cool blue tones. And that's when I used, again, down to what did I have left? What did I have? Yeah, what did I have left? And what were their quantities? So I was really limited, and I thought it was really great. I was really, really pleased. So I did the light, bright turquoise, which I think is just such a fun, bright, crisp, modern, youthful color, with some other turquoises. I did have to hold one of these double just because as we were getting further out, I did end up using more of like worsted weight yarns to, inadvertently, it was just what I had left. So like for the neutral, I had to end up using like a Gilead from Durham Natura, which is great. So this deep turquoise teal color here, I ended up holding double because it was a bit more of a sport weight. And I pushed it a bit further. I think I held this purple also double too. And then back to my neutral black singly, which was light DK. So the moral of that story is you have a lot of wiggle room. The other thing, when it was coming back onto having so many stitches on at this point and for the outer rings, I did increase my needle size just to get more movement on the needles. So initially I knit the Houses Reykjavik to the middle on a US 6, which I think is a 4.0 millimeter needle. I then went to a US 7 for all of the outer rings, which is a 4.5 millimeter needle, if I'm correct. And then for the I-cord bind off, which I did in this black yarn, which I think I've used up quite a bit, which is great to get those chunks out of stash. You know, those chunks that are not enough for a sweater, but too much for, you know, total scrap. So anyways, that's what was really great about this project. But anyways, I used a US 8, which is a 5 millimeter needle for the bind off, just because I absolutely didn't want the edge to pull in or be taut in any way. So that worked out well. So yeah, so working with different needle sizes, it's not suggested on the pattern, but I do think with a project like this, there's so much flexibility and so much just, you know, you'll feel, I felt things needed to change or adapt and stuff like that. And I did do that throughout this process. So 3 different needles, different yarn weights, because again, why be so strict? And again, you can always double up fingering if anything like that too. The other thing that I heard from friends, they're like, oh, I would love to knit that, but I would never want to because of all of the yarn ends. Well, it was not a problem. And I'm not saying that because I don't, you know, ends are a pain. They're a total pain, especially when you're done and you're happy and you want to move on from it. But they're not a problem here because basically you've got the weave and Steven, which Stephen West talks about, and I used it a lot. And then also none of this was, that my yarn scraps weren't superwash. So they were all feltable. So if a color just ran into another color, like on these rings, these outer rings and these inner rings, I would just spit splice it. And, you know, it would join roughly in the right area and it'd be fine and carried on. I don't know where the joins are, but again, those little minutiae, like 1 or 2 stitches that are slightly off because the spit slicing didn't land right on that exact line, it doesn't matter. It's totally fine. And then with spit splicing, I have nothing. The only sections I had to sew in were it was this triangle down here. These triangles down here, there was at the point of every one of these triangles, I just couldn't figure out a way to weave in Steven or split splice because it was literally like a termination point. And so I had, I think, 16 of these to do at the end, which was honestly no bother. So 16 real ends to weave in. Weave in Steven, you work as you go, and then you trim away as you go, which was great because it kept it feeling good in my hands and nothing overly cumbersome in my hands. If there's a lot of ends that I feel, it makes me anxious, as in, I think, am I picking up the right yarn? Like, what is this? That sort of thing. So it was clean process the whole way through, and the ends totally manageable. Don't let that deter you. And the weave in Steven, just look up. Stephen West talks about that all the time, and just look up his podcasts. He's got lots on YouTube. I don't think he does some podcasts, but mostly they're tutorials. And I'm sure he has 1 or 2 on the weave in Steven. But basically it's just as it sounds, where when you're picking up a new color, you can just weave in like you were to catch a color for color work, like catch a float, and you just weave it in as you go. And then I leave a little strand and then trim it, trim it as at the end. And then this is a big blanket. I meant to weigh it before, and if I will try to put the weight in here because I'm curious how much I used, because they're scraps and I'm really diligent at Ravelry. But because they're scraps, I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to put exactly what yarns I used and how much into the Ravelry. I think my DK weight scraps are going to be just in a scrap bin. And I'm probably not going to be able to identify many of them going in the future, but going forward. But that's cool. I'm totally addicted. Once I finish this, I desperately wanted to try another one of his designs. My husband has requested that I that I do a rectangular one. He's like, enough with circular blankets, but I think they're just so much fun, and and use such interesting amounts of yarn too, so it really helps clear out kind of maybe a backlog of what I overbought for previous sweaters and things like that. So that's great. And then I had one more thought that I wanted to, steaming and blocking. Blocking. This is big. This isn't going to fit nicely other than my huge kitchen sink, which I don't really want to put it in. I mean, it gets cleaned, but still it kind of skews me out the kitchen sink. And I don't really have a bowl that this will fit in. So I was starting to sort of panic because especially the center, you know, of course the center sort of pulls a little bit and sort of scrunches up and stuff. It did need blocking, and I did want to lay out these scalloped edges, etc. It didn't need pinning, that's for sure. It just needed to be sort of laid out and relaxed. So I just got my steamer out, and on the porch right there, I had the steamer out, and I just steamed it, and that's all I did. And it was, it was absolutely perfect. And I don't think it needs more. When I do need to wash it, I'm not sure exactly how I'll do it. I'll probably just spot clean it. We have a washing machine downstairs, but it's just the basics because we had fancy ones and they kept on breaking electrical surges and stuff like that. We've got dirty power lines here. That sounds horrible, but there's surges in the power lines. We have frequent storms, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it can shock things even with surge protectors, yada, yada, yada. So our theory now is go for the bare basics and washing machines, and I wouldn't trust it. There's clearly no wool setting on it, and I'm not going to put something like that in all that work. So I think in the future it'll be spot clean only, maybe in a bathtub, but just to relax it and to get the yarn to settle in place, the steamer worked a charm. So that was really great. So yeah, so it was a major mistake. The whole thing almost went in the garbage one night. I was pretty ticked, but it was so worth it and fun to bring up the issue. When I found the mistake, I took a photo, posted on Instagram, and when I woke up in the morning, I had so much good advice in my inbox, and that was so helpful. It really helped me process it and think it through, and then, you know, cutting into your knitting, worst case scenario, you just frog it back anywhere. I'm not doing any damage to the sort of central part. So it was really great to think it through. So anyone who got back to me, thank you so much. I love this community for that, and I'm super, super thrilled with this blanket, and it's definitely an heirloom piece. My son has said it looks really cool, so for an 18-year-old boy to say that, that's pretty high praise. So excellent, excellent, excellent design by the very creative and very brilliant. His Stephen West, he must have done well in geometry class. That's all I can say. I love geometry class, but I just don't think I could have worked this out. Sorry, I got interrupted there by the phone. I don't think Stephen West is amazing at geometry. I don't think I could never figure out how he came to all these different measurements, especially since you're working the ring of houses first and then building inwards and then building outwards after. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And it all worked out perfectly. If I haven't already, I'll put a picture of it in its full glory so you can see how it looks all together. It's a very big blanket, and so it's easier for me to sit and video here and have you look at it this way. There's no other way I could stand and hold it, and it just wouldn't do it. So I'll put in a picture here somewhere. So that was that. Houses of Reykjavik blanket. 10 fingers, 3 thumbs up, star, star, star. It was really good. Other finished objects, I finished another weekend hat by Petite Knit. Oh, I forgot to bring it here. It's sitting at my husband's chair in the TV room because it gets cold in there at night. It was a win. For some reason, I thought I had enough yarn. I didn't quite. It doesn't have the third fold. I don't think my husband Jeff notices. It's a really nice cashmere hat in a color he chose. He's happy with it, so that's great. Another great pattern. A lot of ribbing, but great for mindless work. Things on my needles, not a lot. One whip that I have here, which I'm just waiting for more yarn, is a new design. I love this. I'm really excited about it. It hasn't been steamed or blocked or anything like that, so it's not lying particularly flat, especially around the neckline, but you'll see that later. And it's so far is unnamed. If anyone has any suggestions, that'd be great. I was I don't know why I keep on thinking about Twin Peaks, but there's not two, there's multiple peaks. But that sort of was one of my first ideas, or a play on those words. The idea here is a top down, it's basically a raglan, but there is circular yoke increases at the beginning so that you get a really dramatic increase over the shoulders, and then raglan here. I'm moving away from the very oversized knits that I was really designing the last few years. I think I'm craving 2 to 4 to 5 inches of positive ease, 2 to 4 inches probably I should say. So this is a slimmer fit, straight sleeves though still appeal to me, a high-low hem, or I should say a hem that goes a little bit back, but that's more because of the curvature of my spine than anything. I just don't like my sweaters to ride up in the back. It is a top down in the round sweater construction, and then you attach the collar after and put the short rows in the collar. I do that because I don't like the sweaters to slide down. It gives it a little bit of a strength, and it also gives a lot more control on your short rows, because because of the curvature of my spine and my sort of funny hump at the back here, it's really important to me that I can play around and get the exact right number so that it sits as best as possible. When I bought the yarn is North Bay fibers, the lavender and the green, and it is, let me just look at the name. It is called BayHouse DK, but formerly known as Heritage DK, and the colors are beach glass, which is the purple, and jack pine, which is the really dark green. I bought them at Rhinebeck, and I knew that I needed more jack pine, but I thought, oh, I'll be creative and make it work. And I just really had my heart set on this sort of a look, and so I ran out of yarn, but I have more coming on the way. Yeah, I've just had great help from North Bay Fiber. I'm sorry, I was trying to remember something else at the same time. I can't multitask in my brain. Anyways, so North Bay Fiber were fantastic and said no problem, they'll send something right out to me. So basically I just have the hem and 2 cuffs just to finish. But it's already, the pattern's already at the tech editor, and I'll go into testing. I am wondering that I probably will postpone the delay of the publication till possibly next winter. It's definitely it's a sweater to wear now, not in 6 weeks or 2 months time, which is when it would be ready to be published. So I'm thinking that I'm going to delay that. Also, there is maybe a chance, I am working on a few collaborations with Joanna from Twinset and Purls, and I've sent her the chart for this, and she might be putting together an accessory to go with it, a shawl or something like that. So it might be really worthwhile to hold off until next fall or early winter to publish it, so that there's options for accessories too. Anyways, so that's really exciting. No pressure on my end for Joanna to come up with it, but if it strikes her fancy, then I'm excited, thrilled. But yeah, we were talking about some other designs too right now, so that's just so much fun, and it's fun to collaborate with people. What I didn't mention is the third yarn here, which is the fluffy white, and I had this totally in mind, and I don't know why I was so overconfident. I said I knew I would find this at Vogue Knitting, and I don't know why. There was one person there, Camellia Fiber Arts, that was selling a DK Suri with like long staple length. Like I wanted it to be very fuzzy, to create this texture, and also to create the softness and the warmth and the coziness, which is amazing on the inside. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. I'm going to hold off on that and buy that at Vogue Knitting. And I was so lucky because Camellia Fiber Arts had it, exactly what I was looking for, and I did pick that up. So that was the third yarn, and I think it beautifully blends the two colors with the color work, and I just think it beautifully complements it, because this is quite a matte matte sort of flat uniform fabric, and this really adds a lovely cozy texture and a little bit of volume around with the color work. So I think it's a great pairing. Thrilled with that. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll probably show it one more time when it's totally finished, just as a teaser. But yeah, that might, after the tech editor, I'll probably still have it test knit, but then it'll probably wait till the fall for release, unless you guys say anything dramatic, and I can be persuaded. I'm easily persuaded. Easy to be pushed over in any direction that you want. So if you have any strong thoughts on that, let me know. I can wait to publish it into the fall, or do it later on, probably early spring, and then I can just, re-promote it again like I do my other previous designs as the featured pattern. So that's another option too. And speaking of Twinset and Purls, my other work in progress is I've completed one, and I've started the second last night. This is the Rachel sock by Rachel of Twinset and Purl, and her name is Rachel Fletcher, and it is the most divine pattern in the sense that it's very easy to work, but like minimum effort, maximum output. So there's actually two lace charts. There's one that's on the top. I'm going to take it off the blocker because the blocker kind of bisects where the magic happens. So on the top, you've got this amazing lace pattern, which I really love. And you know what I really, really like are these sort of penny round chains on either side. There's a really pretty one here, and then there's sort of a secondary, and then ditto on the other side. I love that. And then this kind of leafy motif running up the middle, which I think is so elegant. And then compounded, you've got this kind of sort of sexy little lacy thing. I haven't studded my ends here. Going out the back, which reminds me of old hosiery. Excuse me. Cough is gone, pretty much. Just a little tickle there. Up the back with some more of these really beautiful. This is basically like a textured version of like a seed stitch, like multiple seed stitch versions in the center here, creating this great texture striping, and then more of those sort of latticey kind of lace, 1, 2 here. And I just think it's really stunning. Heel flap and gusset, and then a very easy standard toe. I did my own favorite toe, but it's not dramatically different from what is recommended in the pattern. But I just think what a stunning pattern that is, and can't recommend it enough. So that is Rachel from Twinset and Purl, and I think there will be more coming from Rachel and her sister Joanna working with me on different patterns, and can't wait at all. Oh, and the yarn that I'm using is one of my favorite sock weight yarns, which is Magpie Fiber Swanky sock, not DK, Swanky sock, and the color is Careless Whisper. And I've got my yarn here, so that's kind of what I'm working on. I've got some other designs that I'm charting and kind of working out mentally, so I'm not actually physically knitting on them yet. That's coming. Quite a few. I had a bit of a drought of inspiration. Just I think other things in life were kind of taking over my brain, and now they've calmed down, and so my creative inspiration and creative juices are up, and I've got a little list of things that I can work on and start to brainstorm. So I'm excited about that. So lots more to come. And yeah, and that is pretty much it. I will leave you today with I think I've got a few videos of some really nice calm breaks in our winter. We've had a lot of winter wind. It's been unusually cold. I think the last time I recorded it had hit almost like half a degree off of a record temperature, record cold temperature. So it's been kind of wild. Like if you look at our bushes and hedges and trees and stuff, they're wind whipped. It's as if a hurricane's gone through. Everything's brown. Leaves are, sorry, leaves are stripped, and it doesn't look as sort of lush and semi-tropical as it usually does here in Bermuda. But there have been a few beautiful days of quiet, sorry, tickle, of quiet, have a sip of water. Quiet and sun, and the birds are out, and I took a few videos of some beaches as I walked by, just to show you. So we'll leave with some of those videos. I hope they're good. I never really look at them unless I take them. I just sort of file them and think, check. So hopefully they're good. and interesting, and look as beautiful as they did at the day. And so we'll leave you with that. So I'll be back in 2 weeks. In the meantime, happy knitting. Enjoy the last bits of winter or the last bits of summer if you're in the southern hemisphere. And here's to the transition of a new season, which I always think is so exciting. So enjoy, happy knitting, happy crafting. Bye.